Now let's quickly look at receiving and paying of bills. Now we want to look on how to use Peachtree to receive bills and also how we can use Peachtree to pay our bills in paying our bills. So first and foremost, we are going to look through a purchase order by with Dell Company. Now let's go to vendor and purchases. Now you can see the order of purchase. Now first and foremost, you will create a purchase order. After creating the purchase order, we create enter bills. The purchase order will be converted to bill. From bill, the purchase order will be converted to pay bills. Now this is a chain of the transaction for purchase order. So let's quickly click on this. I'll click on purchase order. I'll click on new purchase order, or we go to tax and we locate purchase order. Now when we click on this, you can see that, or we click on this particular link and click on new purchase order. When we click on new purchase order, now we look for a vendor. Now that's the vendor we've created. So we'll click on that. Now, when did this transaction take place? Let's assume that this transaction took place on the 5th of January. And you can see the go through. Now, because we said whenever we purchase from a vendor, we are given 30 with a period of 30 days to make payment. Now, let's quickly give that a purchase order number. Now, we can close the purchase order. We just open it so we can close it now, or we can drop ship this purchase order. Drop ship simply means the company will bring it directly to us, so that implies drop shipping. Now we look at this. Are we having any discount amount? Now remember the default we set 2% if we make payment in 10 days, and net 30 days we're giving 30 days to make payment. With this goods be shipped. So that is which company is going to ship that. So now let's click on the quantity. How many quantity of this particular product has been needed? So main quantity of this particular product. Now this company deals with laptop. Now we can see that. So what's the unit price for this? So we can see that Cesar has done that to us. Now the vendor doesn't have a opening balance. That means are we holding the vendor a certain sum of money? So this is where if we click on this, we can see that there. Okay, now we've done this. The next thing we are going to do, we've created the purchase order. We need to save the purchase order. Okay, let's save the purchase order. We already told that the purchase order exists for this vendor. A purchase order for that. Let's quickly close this and let's come again. Okay, since this purchase order already exists, let's quickly close this window and what we're going to do, we're going to enter bills. We're going to convert the purchase order to a bill. So what's the name of the vendor? That's the name of vendor. Peachtree automatically brings up. Peachtree automatically brings up all other information about the particular vendor. Remember, the goods was purchased on the 5th. So let's assume that we enter the bill on the 7th. And what is the invoice number for the bill? Now this purchase order, what is the purchase order we want to convert to a bill payment? That's the purchase order we can see. Okay, now these goods, how many of these goods did we receive? Let's assume we received 8 of it. Because when we look at the received bill, it was 8 of this particular bill we received. So it was 8 of this particular goods we received. So we'll click on save. Okay. We're also told that this already exists. Sorry. Let's close this. Already exists. Enter bill. New bill. Okay, let's make use of this particular window. So okay, this already exists. This already exists. So let's quickly move to the next one. When we purchase order for Dell company and receive inventory. Now we can see um, receiving or paying bills through a purchase order. We can see when we enter the bill that the enter bill window is the same thing with purchases stroke inventory window. You can see that is the same thing with purchase stroke receive inventory window. Now when we go to the tax, we go to purchase or receive inventory window. You can see the title purchases or receive inventory window. You can see that the information are the same. Enter new bill is still the same purchases and receive inventory window. Let's quickly go to the next. Now, on the next one, we're talking about the next entering bill without a purchase order. Now, in other words, we can create a bill without first and foremost creating a purchase order. It's not necessary we follow the chain of command. Now, if for instance we happen to go to a particular supplier manufacturer and want to buy goods from that manufacturer and we want to pay the goods immediately, we don't need to start creating the purchase order before we create enter bills. All we need to do is to click on enter bills and click on new bill, or we go to the tax menu, go to bill, we click on enter bill. Now I want to click on enter bill. What type of bill we want to enter on? Now in this particular case, we want to pay for the office chair. So let's assume a supplier provided us, a manufacturer provided us with a chair. So let's call this Chinsun Furniture. Okay, let's make this Jamie Furniture Venture. Let's say Jamie Furniture Venture. Okay, that's the name of the manufacturing company. Now Peachtree is flagging up this because this vendor ID does not exist. So now, which date did we make payment for this particular chairs that we bought for the vendor? So let's assume that on the 6th, we went to the vendor and we make the payment. We created a bill for this particular chair. Let's assume we created the bill for this particular chair on the 6th of January 2021, and the invoice number is this. Now we can drop shipping, or is it waiting on the bill? So now, do we want to wait till the manufacturer send us the bill? Because we made a request to the manufacturer. Sorry, we made a request to the manufacturer. We did not go to the manufacturing company, but we made a request to the manufacturer to supply us some numbers of shares. So now we've given him so we want, instead of creating a purchase order, we decide to create a bill immediately because we want to make the payment immediately. we do not want to, we don't have it in our mind to delay the payment for the particular share because the share is needed immediately. So instead of making the purchase order, then we go through a discussion if we could go ahead to buy the share. The decision has already been made that the share will be bought. So do we want to wait for the manufacturer to send us the bill, or we want to write a bill, or will it be a drop shipping with manufacturer supplying, bringing it to us as a company? Whichever way, that's the functions of this particular two checkbox. Now, what quantity of chairs are we buying from this manufacturer? Now, let's assume we need 12 executive chairs that we can use in our conference room. Now, what type of now you can see this particular item is not there, so let's call it executive. No, so let's call it a not executive chair, with a single chair, a single leather chair. Okay, let's call that. Let's rather call it a German leather chair. A German leather chair. Okay, let's assume it is German leather chair we need for our conference room. So chair with strong leather. Okay, that's that. So we're giving the description to that. So next thing we need to do, let's place a tampoline. Where does this particular item is going to? Remember, it's not an inventory, it's a fixed asset. It's a fixed asset to the company because we are not selling it. So I think we've passed fixed assets. Okay. Now this fixed asset, where can we put it? I think putting together furniture and fittings. Okay, we have furniture and fittings, so let's put it there. Now, what is the price for one of this? So let's assume that the price of one of these is let's call that 350. The price of one of these is 350. So we need 12 of this type. So that's it. That's that. Okay, and so this is what so this is the price, 4,200 naira for 12 of that chair that we'll be having. So entry bill without a purchase order. So we've entered the bill for this particular chair with this company without a purchase order. All we need to do is to go up and click on save. Now Peachtree is going to tell us let's set up the vendor, that the vendor does not exist in the record. So let's quickly set up the vendor. So we've given the vendor who is the representative of Jamie Furniture Venture. So let's assume that the manager there in that company is Jean. So we fill out this, what type of vendor it is. Let's say a manufacturer or chair manufacturer. Okay, now I think that's okay. What expense account can we put this now? What expense account does this can this fall into? We've made an error in this numbering of this. Sales laptop, sales iPad, this should be income. We are going to change that to visit our chart of account to change this to. Okay, we'll do that in a moment. But let's get the expense account. Okay, what is type of expense account is this going to be? So let's see what Peachtree has given us. So we can get a particular expense account for that. What type of expense account? Supply services. Supply services. Okay. So should we put it under office supply expense. No, we can't call that the office supply expense because this is actually furniture. Okay, office supply expense should be something like that. Okay, if we want to group it there, we can group it under office supply expense account. Okay, let's call that office supply expense account. Let's drop it there. That is where the expense is going to be recorded. But you have to remember that, or we rather create furniture, or we rather create furniture expense account. We could equally do that by creating the furniture expense account. So let's quickly see how we can go to our chart of account. Remember, there's something we want to change in the chart of account. Let's check the chart of account. Let's go to the income side for the chart of account. So we have these two, sales of laptop. The account type, we have to change that to income. Okay, let's save that. Okay, let's go to the next. Let's change this. Okay, now let's create the furniture. Okay, let's create a chart of account, furniture expense account. So let's say office furniture expense account. So let's try to create that. Let's create furniture expense account instead of office supply expense account. Okay, now 71,000. So let's call that 71,100. Okay, 71,000. Okay, so we have 71,100. So we call that furniture supplies. Okay, let's call that expense account and let's click on save. Okay, we've done that. We can click on close. Now we can go back to our vendor that we're creating. We could go back to the general and we can change this to office supply expense account. Okay, financial supply, that will be better. So let's click save and let's close this particular window. When we close this particular window, we as Peachtree brings us back to this window. Then we can now save this. Okay, now this particular type of item, the description, let's call it leather chair. Leather chair. Okay, what class of item is this? Now this is a non-stock item. That will be very good. Non-stock item. So the non-stock item is for purchase. 12 conference chair. Conference chair. Now whenever Peachtree highlights something in red, you should know that the spelling is wrong. Okay, what's the price level? Let's leave that. What account is this going to? General sales ledger, the general sales ledger account. I'm coming. This is for sales, not for purchase. Okay. So what now we are trying to check what we've done previously to say. Okay, now purchase letter now. Where is general defined? Where is this going to? General ledger cost of sales account. Oh, this is a fixed asset. When you want to record the fixed assets in Peachtree, we make use of the journal entry. We make use of the journal entry recording a fixed asset. So let's quickly change this. Instead of office chair, let's call this reams of paper. Reams of paper. So let's call that reams of paper. So entering bill without a purchase order. So let's enter this bill without a purchase order. Now this okay, let's start this afresh. Let me simply close this. Let me close that. So enter a bill without a purchase order. Click on this. Let's go to, because what we did earlier on was a fixed asset. And in recording a fixed asset, you make use of a journal entry in recording the fixed asset. Okay, I'm going to explain to you something later on. Okay, let's just look at this. So let's go to view, enter view. Then I click on this and use enter view, or you will go through this aspect and click enter view. Now trying to enter, we are entering the view without going through the purchase order. Okay, now I'm going to delete this later on. We'll delete that. Okay, let's assume okay we bought a ream of paper. Okay, let's assume we bought this from this person. Let's call that Jamie Venture. Let's assume we bought it from VC Venture. Now, and the ream of paper was, we bought ream of paper, let's assume it was bought on the 6th. And we have that. So, what would be the invoice number for this? 101. Okay. So, what else can we do? Now, this is a ream of paper. How many how many reams of paper did we buy? Let's assume we bought 5 reams of paper, and items, we don't have that here. Let's just put the description, ream of paper. Since it's not an item that we want to sell, so let's call that reams of paper. And what account is this entering? That should be expense account, and that should be office supply expense account. Office expense. Okay, office supply expense. Okay, we've already created something of this nature. Office supply expense or office expense. We are going to delete this. We're going to delete that. We're going to delete it. Office expense. So let's make use of the office expense here. Office expense. Let's call that office expense. Okay, what's the unit price for one? Let's assume the unit price for one is 300 and we are buying that amount. Okay, now you can see what the bill we're making, the total amount for this particular purchase, 1,500. Let's save. Now, Peachtree is telling me to settle because there's no vendor by that name. Okay, so now we've done this. Let's just, because of time, let's leave the other field. Let's quickly go to expense account. We call the expense account we used is office expense. Office expense, yeah. So that's the expense account. Let's quickly put this. The person that we attend to us, let's assume the person that we attend to us is Kenny. Or Kenny is the person that normally attends to us. Okay, now let's save this. Now let's bring this backward. Now Jamie Venture. Now this Jamie Venture, we are trying to put an expense account for this Jamie Venture. Then we created furniture supply. No, because this is a fixed asset. In order to record the fixed asset, we use the journal entry in recording fixed asset. So let's quickly delete this off. Yes. Okay. Let's close this. Okay, let's quickly look at the other ones we've done. Okay, fine. Let's quickly close this and let's save. Now we can save now. Okay, what I want us to do is this. Let's quickly go to maintain, or let's go through this chart of account. Now those accounts we created for that furniture supply, office supply expense. Now let's delete this particular. Let's delete it off. Let's delete this off. Office supply expense. We created this when we bought furniture. But now furniture is a fixed asset. So when you want to record the fixed assets in Peachtree, you make use of the journal entry in recording of the fixed assets. In recording of the fixed assets. So that's what we use. That's what we use in recording the fixed assets. So now let's look at another expense account we need to delete off here that we created that we ought not to create it. I think we created furniture supply. We created furniture supply. Let me delete this also. Now, if the company should buy, let's assume the company bought furniture and bought some leather share for the conference, for the conference room. We bought some leather chairs in order to replace the chairs in the conference room. Now, in order to record such transaction, what we need to do is to go to the journal entry. We go through the journal. We go through the journal and we do such recording. I'm coming. I'm trying to look at something. Okay. Now we'll go through the journal entry, and now this is journal list. We go through the journal entry. When we get through the journal entry, we we record such transactions. So let's assume we company bought some leather chairs. Some leather chairs we want to use it to replace that in the conference room. We click to the tax menu and click on the general journal. Now when you click on the general journal, what we do here is this. What account we go to fixed assets because the furniture is under furniture and fittings. Now we call this leather chair. That's what we call that. Now what is the cost of all leather chair that the company bought? Let's assume we bought 12, that's 6,000 naira. Okay, now which account are we going to credit? Now, where do we get the money from in buying the leather chair? Let's assume we got it from our bank account. So we credit that 6,000. So this is how you record fixed assets. When fixed assets are bought, this is how you record fixed assets when using Peachtree whenever fixed assets are bought. So let's quickly click save and then we click on close. So when you go to the chart of account, you will see the leather chair we bought under the furniture and fittings. Now you can now see the 6,000. So these are your record. These are your record fixed assets when fixed assets are bought within the accounting period using Peachtree. So that is the reason I had to change this from leather chair to reams of paper, because for we to record that, we have to use the journal entry in recording fixed assets. So the next thing we want to look at, I want to look at bill paid at the time we received it. Okay, at the time we received the bill, we make payments. Enter, okay, bill paid at the time we receive it. Okay, so let's do that. The last thing we did for the reams of paper, we only enter the bill. This time around, the bill was paid at the time we received it. And what was the transaction? It was NEPA bill. Transaction was NEPA bill. Okay. Now what is the, okay, we don't have the, okay, let's call this Eco NEPA. We click on OK. Well, we click on OK. Once we click on OK, at which date did we make this payment? So let's assume we make this payment on the 12th of December, or 12th of January. Now, what was the invoice number? 000102. So, now the quantity. So let's just put one. Since it's not an item, let's call that NEPA bill for the month of December. Okay. Now, what account are we going to charge this? Is an expense account. So let's see which expense account we are going to charge every amount of money, every naira we spend on NEPA bill. So which account do we want to use to track that? Let's see the account we can use in tracking that. Okay, let's see the account we can use to track that. Other expense there. We can put it under utility. No, let's do comfort. Let's do comfort. Let's see if we can get something better than that. Let's see if we can use something better than that. If we can use something better than that. Let's see if we can use something better than that. Okay, I don't think there is any other. We can put it under miscellaneous expense. Okay, I think that would be okay for that. Now, how much was the NEPA bill? Let's assume the NEPA bill was 2,130 naira. Okay. Okay, remember the bill, we entering bill without the purchase order for that. We did that for into paper. Bill paid at the time we receive it. Okay, so let's assume we make payment for this. So that is 2,139. So we'll make payment for this particular transaction when we receive that. So every moment I press the tab key, Peachtree brings up this additional column. So what's the reference number? Let's just type a reference number. Let's call it 12345 where is this money coming from that we use in paying for the bill? So let's call that from the cash account. And the cash account is this. So immediately we receive we create the bill, we make payment for it. Immediately we receive the bill, we make payment for the bill. So that's how to make payments immediately for a bill without creating a purchase order. So let's quickly set up this vendor since this vendor does not exist. So let's call this when the name of the staff of this particular company that attends to us or that is attached to our company is known as Solomon. So let's quickly put the expense of account and ignore the other fields because of time. So let's quickly look at we make use of utility. So anytime we want to calculate the amount of money we spend on electricity bill, we have to remember that we are using a utility expense account to track that. So we've done that. Let's click on save. Let's click on close, and let's click on save here. Okay, and let's click on close. So let's quickly look at the next thing we have on the list. What we have next is entering bill for partial paid items. Now, this is a kind of scenario whereby we enter the bill, but we make part payment for the goods. So, e.g., let's use another two Dell laptop was purchased from Dell company. Payment was made for one, while none was made for the other. Now, we have to create a purchase order first. Now, we can create a purchase order first, or we enter the bill without a purchase order. We can enter the bill without making a purchase order, and we'll make payment for that. And payment was made by cash. So let's enter the bill instead of going through the purchase order. Instead of creating the purchase order, then we later create the bill. Let's just create a bill immediately for that particular transaction. We bought that from this. Okay. And when did this transaction take place? Let's assume the transaction took place on the 20th. And what is the invoice number? 00001. Now you have to always remember where you left off in your invoice. If you can't remember the last invoice you have, the last invoice number you have, all what you need to do is to use this button. Now 102. So you can see that our last invoice number was 102. So that will really help you to know how to put the number to use for your invoice. So we're dealing with this, and we said the transaction took place on the 20th. So 00003. Okay. Now I'm sorry. We are not applying this bill. We are not applying this bill. We're entering a bill, and we make payment for the bill. We are entering the bill, and we make payment for the bill. Yes, we need to create a purchase order for that. We need to create a purchase order for that. Why? Now you can see there is a gray. All this area is gray. This is tell us that we have to create a purchase order for this particular transaction before we can continue with it. So let's say no. Okay, let's go through this tax menu, going to this and entering bill. Now you can see this is opened now. There you go. You can see the differences between the uh, entering through this particular menu. When you make use of enter a bill using this command, entry the bill through using this command, you can see that we need to create a purchase order, and we make use of this command, entry the bill, and we quickly click on this. You can see this will tell you that we must create a purchase order before creating the bill. So that means we are in order here that we need to create a purchase order first, and then we'll make the payment. So let's quickly follow that particular steps. Let's create the purchase order for this particular company, and the transaction took place on the 20th. The purchase order number. Okay, I can't remember the last purchase order number. So let me quickly check on that. 101. So that was the last purchase order number. So let's quickly do that. So 0000102. The transaction took place on the 20th. I said earlier, we're talking about, so what is the item? The Dell laptop. What is the unit price? Now let's assume that this the unit price of this particular laptop. This is 40,000. Now let's assume that the one we bought now, this particular laptop we bought goes for 35,000 naira. So that is that for the laptop. So now we've gotten that for the laptop. So we've quickly created a purchase order for that. So let's quickly save. Let's convert the purchase order to a bill. So we click on this new bill and let's quickly click on that. Let's assume it was converted to a bill 2 days after. That was, let's say, a day after, let's call it. So now we have 000113. Okay, now which purchase order we applying it to? This. So now the amount that was paid. Okay, the quantity that was received was 2. So the amount that was paid was 70,000 naira. And we make payment for one, that's 35,000 naira. Now press the tab key. That brings the additional column. Let's call this 1. Let's call it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now how are we making this payment? Because it's a cash purchase. That's the payment is a cash purchase. So we've created the purchase order first and we'll make payment because payment was made. That is a cash purchase. So now we can now see how you can enter a bill and you make a partial payment for that particular item. So let's quickly hit on the save button and let's hit on the close button and let's see what we have next on our list. Now we have paying a single bill, e.g. make part payment of 300,000 to Dell company for computer boards. Okay, pay a single bill. Now pay bill command. Now we want to pay for a single bill. Want to make pay for a single bill, want to make payment for the bill, we can pay bill using this command. All we need to do is search for the company that we want to pay. Now, remember we want to just make payment for a single bill. Now, this particular case, there's a discount. Okay, we can also get to this window by using go to the tax menu because we want to perform a tax and go to pay bills. Now we are paying the bill, we are not entering the bill. We click on that and we click on this. Excel automatically fills the field with all that. So now next one the check reference number. Let's just type a particular number. This be when this transaction actually took place. Let's assume transaction took place on the 20th. Let's say transaction took place on the 1st of February. Now, what is a payment method? Are we giving a payment method here? Let's pay a single bill, make part payment of. Okay, we're not giving. So we are okay. Let's assume that the payment was made using the checking account. Okay, using the checking account. So, and we want to make payment for just a single bill. So, let's assume we want to clear all this so that we will not have any outstanding left. So that's the all we need to do is to tick this particular. When we tick on that, you can see Elsa gives us 280,000 now the invoice. Elsa gives 280,000 on the invoice. So we want to pay for this, we also take this checkbox, this check mark. So now we're already paying for one. That is the first one. And if we are not paying, or if you are not paying the exact amount, for instance, let's assume we want to pay 230,000 naira. So want to pay 230,000 naira. Okay, if we are just if that one we want to pay, that we are not paying everything, so we can do that there and put that amount, and Peachtree is going to calculate it, and Peachtree is going to calculate it. Peachtree is going to calculate that, and we can click it on the save button, and we move ahead to the next. Now the next, what we have next on the list here is another payment with a debit card. Okay, this will make the payment with a checking account, that's with a bank account. So we want to make another payment using a debit card. Okay, let's assume that the payment we want to make here is to McDonald's for lunch and entertainment with customer. Okay, we want to make payment for lunch. We took some of our customers and we entertained them for lunch. So, and where we took them to, the name of the place we took them to is called McDonald's. That's the name of the fast food. The name of the fast food is McDonald's. And let's assume we have a reference, check reference number. That is the reference number, that's the bill we're given by the McDonald's. And let's assume that we took our customer for this particular transaction on the 2nd of February. Okay, and okay, payment method checking account. Now, payment method we are paying with a debit card. We are paying with a debit card, that is through our checking account. So let's leave what is here because we are making payment through the checking account with our checking account. And what is that? It's a lunch and entertainment. Okay, so the item, let's leave that and go to description, lunch and entertainment. Okay, we can call that customer lunch and entertainment. Customers lunch or lunch and entertainment for customers. Now, these customers is not just all customers. These are people that are very loyal to the company and they will patronize the company for long. Okay, which account can we put this? We call this, and this will be an expense account because an expenses. So, what type of expense account can we put this? So let's quickly look at a particular expense account that is closely related to lunch and entertainment for customers. Okay, I can find something we can use here. We can put it under other expense. You can put it under other expense. Remember, other expense we also use in tracking some of that. So, but once you put it on under other expense, you must take note of that. That is included in other expense account. So you'll be able to track the amount of money. So let's assume that when we took the customer out, we spent a total of 4,500 naira. Okay, that is that. So we need to click on close. We need to click on save. Sorry, let's set up this vendor since the vendor does not exist. Okay, let's the person that attended to us was Mary. That's the staff that attended to us. Expense account. Remember, we make use of other expense account. When you use other expense account to track your expenses, you need to take note of the type of expenses that are being tracked by other expense account. Because previously we also make use of this other expense account to track our other transaction. So now we've clicked on save. Let's click on close. Now we can save this and be able to close this. So let's look at what we have on our list. Paying in multiple bills, printing and avoiding check. Okay, we want to pay in multiple bills. Okay, Carlos Smith. Now, once we want to pay in multiple bills, okay, we want to pay in multiple bills. We want to pay in multiple bills, Carlos Smith. Now, we don't have any vendor by that name, Carlos Smith. I don't think we have a vendor by that name, Carlos Smith. Okay, so we don't have any vendor by that name, Carlos Smith. So we can either we click on the vendor, or so either we set up the vendor, or we simply go. Since we don't have a vendor by that name, Carlos Smith, we can start with entering the bill. Then Carlos Smith. Let's assume this transaction took place in February 3rd. Paying multiple bills, Carlos Smith. Okay, let's assume we have the Carlos Smith, and what did we buy from Carlos Smith? What are the things we bought from this particular vendor, Carlos Smith? So let's say we bought um let's go to the description. If not, we need to set up. If we put this, okay, let's include this. Let's say we bought computer peripherals from it. Okay, let's another what we bought from him. Okay, the account. Which expense account is going to capture that? Okay, that's the account, the GL account that's going to capture that. And let's assume what the unit price. Let's assume the unit price was 200 naira and we bought 10. Okay, let's also assume also we bought okay, let's click on that. I think we're done with that. Let's save this. Let's set up this vendor. The person in the company that attended to us, let's call the name of the person Jimmy. And the expense account for this transaction. Remember the other computer the other computer accessory, the other peripherals is a let's quickly close this. Let's assume we got um let's assume we bought from this particular vendor Carlos. Let's assume what we bought from this particular vendor Carlos Smith. Okay, let's go ahead with it. Let's go ahead with this. Let's go ahead. Let's quickly set it up. Let's go ahead with it. I wanted us to use something else. Let's just use something else. No, let's go back. Let's simply close it. Let's simply close this particular. Let's close it. Let's delete this off. Let's make this. What item are we going to enter? Okay, let's assume we bought. Okay, we bought house gas. Okay, and that's for house gas. No, sorry, gas for the office. Or let's call it fuel. I think fuel is better for the generator in the office. So let's assume that that will be better. Okay. Now where can this fall into? We see office expense, but let's see if we can get something better than that. I think office expense is better. Let's include that into the office expense. Okay, I think this is better. Now, um, so we just make payment for this particular fuel. We bought a fuel and the unit price for one, let's call it 167, and we bought 30 liters. That's 30 liters for that. So that's the amount of money that was bought. Okay, so let's save. Okay, let's set up Carlos Smith. Then the expense account here we are using office expense. I decided to change the other one because that deals with inventory. The other one deals with inventory, so I have to change that example and get a better example. Okay, now we can now save this and close. So now we want to do the pay, making a multiple payment now, paying a multiple bills. Okay, printing and voiding of checks. Okay, let's say paying multiple bills. So let's go to the tax menu. Since we are making the multiple bills, now this payment is to, if we want to make a single payment. That particular payment is if we want to make a single payment. So let's assume the company, and let's assume a reference number of one. Okay, and okay, let's assume that we make a payment for some purchases we bought for them from this particular company. Okay, let's assume we have 50,000 left yet on pay. Let's assume we click on this, we make that payment. Let's assume we make it by cash, and this is a cash account. So you can see Excel automatically fills this. So that is for a single payment. So you click on save and close. If we want to make for multiple payment, we make use of this select for payment. Now, when we click select for payment, which is going to ask you what the payment, check date, invoice due before this date, or discount loss by this date. So how do we want to do? We want to all invoices that is past so date, that the payment we want to make. So do we want to make payment for only invoices that the 30 days due past, that is past due to date, or want to make payment for all invoices. There so number of days past due. So the check date, where do we want the Peachtree to start checking from? So we can tell Peachtree start checking from first. I'll tell Peachtree start checking from first to 11th of March. Then all invoices past due date, we can say that 0 date with balance over 0 naira. Or we can tell Peachtree, okay, we need all vendors from this particular point to this particular point. I want Peachtree to give us that. So we could do that. So let's leave this option. Check date from this. Invoice due before 11th of March. That means Peachtree should give us all the invoice that is due for payment before 11th of March. And okay, let's just click on OK and let's see what it's going to bring us on. There are no outstanding invoices that match the criteria. So let's go back to this and say select payment. So we can see, we can tell Peachtree, okay, give us this from Carlos to this with all those invoices. Carlos to this. Now you can see Peachtree has given us all the invoices. Now we'll now select the payment we want to make. We want to make all the payments. We want to make all the payment. When I click this again, we want to make all the payments. That's for all. Then uncheck it. So now do we want to make all the payment or do we want to make selected payment? So if I should click, I want to make payment for this. I want to make payment for this. Now, do I want to make all payment for this particular amount? I can say, okay, no, for this one, I want to make payment for 10,000 naira. Do I want to make payment of any of these? If I don't want to make, I leave it that way. So how do I want to make the payment? Is it from a cash account or with a regular checking account? We do that. Now, payment method, since we are using a regular checking account, is by check and not by cash. So all what we need to do, since we've selected what we want to pay, Peachtree has automatically calculated that this is the sum of money that this is going to enter. Okay, now that we're done with that, we can print. We can print view. Okay, let's click on the print. Okay, what do we want to print? Check number from number of copy one. First check number. Okay, let's just go ahead with this. Now we have to put the check number. I can't really recall the check number we have. We can't really recall the check number we have. Okay, let's rather use this method. Let's use this method. Let's do a preview. Okay, print preview. Now we have to put the check number. The check number. The check number that we want to print. So you can see Peachtree has automatically bring out that for that particular company, this is the 10,000 naira we say we want to pay. 10,000 naira want to pay. Check number 101. And so let's quickly close this. So if we want to avoid this particular check, you want to avoid the check, what we need to do, let's close that. We can say yes, we want to print it, or we don't want to print it. What do we have here? Okay, printing. We can say yes to we want to print, and takes us back to this particular inbox. So let's go back to close, and let's just say no for now. Let's go to tax and let's check for voiding of checks. Let's check. We want to void checks. Okay, void checks. Now you want to void the check. You go to the check and you click on the particular check you want to void. Are you sure you want to void this transaction? Say yes. Peachtree is going to void that particular one transaction. So let's just click on close and move ahead with our training. Okay, now we've done that. The next thing we'll be looking at setting up of customers and sales. Customers and sales, and we'll be looking at how to receive payment from customers. What we did earlier was we looked at ordering for goods and receiving the goods, as ordering for inventory and receiving the inventory. And we looked at receiving the inventory and making payments for the inventory and making payment by bills. Okay, now we've excluded when we said writing a check for cash purchase by McDonald. Now, okay, we did this, but actually we didn't use this particular check. We didn't use that particular command. For we to write a check for McDonald's, we go to tax, we go to write check. So we click on McDonald's. Now when we did this, we have to put the number. Let's put the check number. Okay, let's see the date that this particular transaction occurs. Let's assume it occurred on the 8th. Okay, now we're writing checks for McDonald's, writing a check for cash purchase. Okay, I write the check, we do the checking account in paying for it, using the check, and how much are we paying? Okay, let's assume we are paying 2,100. This is what we should have done earlier. The first time we did about we did the transaction relating to McDonald's. We should have made the payment for that particular transaction using the check command. But that was an oversight. We did something else. Okay, now, and you can see this transaction is made up of two transactions, launch and entertainment with customer. So in our memo, we can simply put launch for customers, and then here we can say entertainment, because the amount of money we paid was for both launch and entertainment for the customer. We can also decide if we want to split the amount. We click on that. Now, since we paid a total of 2,100, we can simply say okay. We can simply say okay, that the amount of money for entertainment was actually, let's assume 1,100. That was the amount. Okay, then let's say this other one, the amount for this launch for the customer. Let's say the launch was actually 1,000 naira. So we click on OK, and you can see Peachtree is going to split the amount of money. Now, should the amount of money is going to different account, we just click on this, and if we have another account where we can put that particular transaction that took place, that is for launch, or let us assume we did entertainment for customer and we use it for advertising. So instead of launch with customer, let's rather say we rather did advertisement. So the amount of money is for launch and advertisement. Okay, launch with customer and okay. Okay, that's very good. I'm the one who made a mistake. Launch and entertainment with customer and goods for marketing and goods for marketing. So now we're in order. This is launch and entertainment. I didn't read that to the end because I'm trying to make the video to be as short as possible. Then the other one is for marketing. Marketing. So let's assume we spend 1,000 naira for marketing, and we spend 1,100 naira for launch and entertainment. Because now for the marketing, the other amount of money will go into advertising because it's an expense we have to do for advertising. We have advertising expense. Now you can see the amount of money is split into two different accounts. So we're writing check for that. We click on save, and so let's quickly go through over that again. What company are we talking about? Okay, we're still talking about the McDonald's. Okay, and we said it was 2,100. So we'll have to go through that again. And let's say this was for let's this for lunch and entertainment. Okay, and this for advertisement, as for marketing, as advert. Okay, and we are splitting this into two, as advert. What account is this? No, that advert should go to advertisement. Okay, now let's assume it was 1,000. Then let's call this launch and entertainment for customers. We don't have this launch and entertainment for customers. We can simply create, instead of launching it to other expense, we can equally create that launch and entertainment for customers. Like we can equally create that. Since instead of putting it, lumping it up into other expense account, we can create 89. Let's call it 9,100. Can simply create that, and we call this launch launch and entertainment for customers. Okay, we can call that. Okay, and let's try it. Let's see. Now let's set up this, since the general ledger account does not exist. Okay, launch and entertainment. Okay, that's an expense account. That's an expense account. Okay, fine. Now we can now click save. We click on close. We click on OK. Now we click on save. Now Peachtree automatically saves that. We want to check. We click on this, and we should be able to see this year to date. Now you can see the first one we did and the second one we did. Okay, the last one we did, we can see the both of them we did. So that means we need to delete one out of this particular transaction. So let's double click this launch for customer. So let's simply delete this particular one. Now, instead of voiding that, we could decide to void it and it will be inactive. But let's rather delete it off. And let's say yes. Now the transaction is off. We can go back to our list, and we can see we only have one transaction, and we can click on close. Okay, now that's what we've done that for this particular section. What we need to do next is we'll be looking at how to create a customers and how to make sales to this particular customers. We create a customer, we make sales for the customers. Then we look at um, receiving money from this customer that will make sales to them. We receive the money from the customers. Then we, after doing that, we now look at stock takings. So we talk about stock takings. So we look at taking of stocks, look at taking of stocks, taking inventory and adjusting them before they will not later go into payroll.